Hello. If you're watching this at some point, I hope you're enjoying some morning beverage. um, yeah, so I mostly just trying to stay in the habit of talking, but I've been going down a rabbit hole. I'm a big conspiracy nerd in that I like studying different weird conspiracy theories because it usually brings you up against just some of the weirdest stuff and weirdest ideas and weirdest people you can find. Um, and what I thought was, just a weird rabbit hole years ago has, accidentally become our ruling class in so many ways. So one of the weird curiosities that I've been looking into is the Zizians. Um, and so I was just listening to something on that, and my brain is just like, dude, what are we doing? um, I yeah, I find it really interesting. So the thing for me that is really capturing my attention is this sort of like AI computer oriented culture, this like transhumanist cyborg culture that people are kind of obsessed with these days is for me kind of just this horrific, it seems to me at least to be just a really horrific trap for our little brains that are so easily run amok. You know, a lot of the reason that I like conspiracy theories actually is to kind of like test my brain against something that I know is trying to move me in a particular direction, and for me to be able to like remain unmoved in any one particular direction as a result of exposure to this information. That's just like a personal whatever. Um, and I as a result of looking at all this stuff, I see people go down rabbit holes and get absolutely lost, right? And the Zizians, for anybody who doesn't know, these are the guys who, the folks who were involved with the shooting death, the unfortunate death of a Border Patrol agent on the northern border um, between Vermont and Canada back in January. I think it was on Inauguration Day, actually. Um, so it's really weird. I didn't really much care about it until I started getting a sense of the fact that it was kind of linked into all of these rationalist communities and AI driven, sort of like I think it's an overused word, cult, and so I don't really like that framework. I think through that framework, I'm theoretically trying to start a cult in that framework. Um, I think it's for me, it's just a fanatical devotion to something that is fundamentally silly in my mind. Um, you know, I'm all for fundamental, like kind of fundamentalist, zealous devotion to a cause if it's worthy of your devotion. um, but um, but I I'm going to use this opportunity to kind of process the fact that I have, for the last 5 years, while I've been looking for people to share an openness to emergent reality, um, which is what I believe the goddess drives us toward, is like to allow for genuine emergence to unfold um, by protecting and preserving the conditions for life to emerge. For the last 5 years, my rough structure on understanding that and how to do that was all about I can't create it. It's not for me to create anything. It's not for me to try to push any sort of agenda beyond the idea that I'm just here to listen with whoever's in the space with me. And through a couple of friends, I was kind of pointed toward and moved into kind of adjacent communities to some of these folks. People who are like really into AI, people who are really into like crypto oriented stuff. You know, honestly, like Curtis Yarvin is like really close to the group of people I've been, you know, kind of like, you know, in at least mildly overlapping circles. And I had been aware of him for, you know, since 2017 or something like that. And so the whole thing has felt very wacky as I've been, you know, just looking for people with the, you know, kind of relative openness, relative intelligence to be able to talk about alternative ways of orienting our lives as we move toward what I believe to be like a moment of profound ecological and societal crisis that we're only just now beginning to, I believe, see the first hiccups coming now. So, and all of those conversations were so disappointing. I found AI to be this like thought terminating cliche that was so easy for people to just fall into. Let's just like, it feels like this like giving of all of our power over to this thing. It feels like just another masculine replacement for daddy vibes, you know. You know, Yahweh not cutting it for you. How about AI? Is kind of how it feels to me. You know, it's like daddy's all powerful. Daddy will take care of it. And I think that shit for me just like fundamentally leads to problematic thinking, like leads to a ton of like, as fucked up as it is, like if you're like, when you end up putting people in camps, like in your weird world, you know, you just say, oh, I was just following orders. You know, oh, I was just doing what I was told. I was just listening to daddy. And I think that is so perfect for me as the antithesis to what I perceive the goddess is trying to communicate to humans right now with her return. And I believe that the goddess is pointing us in this direction because I do believe that somewhere along the line we lost our humanity. And I think that in losing our humanity to like mechanization, compartmentalization, you know, we have lost the ability to dream, to feel our way into new realities, as opposed to, you know, kind of like think our way through everything, where it's like all caught up in these like esoteric theoretical frameworks and hypothetical thinking. And it's so it's like stale and dead. And what I think is so sad for me is that it's so decoupled from all of like the millennia of human thinking that has like already gone so far beyond some of these basic questions. But because you put it next to AI, people's brains shut off and they say, like, oh my God, we're having such a cutting edge, smart conversation. We're so smart. Aren't we fucking smart? And then they like can run all of these other stupid, I mean, honestly, stupid, um, sort of like brain games that are like fun if you're in high school, but like as soon as you're in basic human relationships, like as soon as you're really listening to what somebody else has to say, or like looking at genuine material conditions affecting the lives of your fellow humans, it's just like, what are we wasting our time with right now? This is so like Little Lord Fauntleroy shit in my mind, as I'm sitting here, you know, doing something arguably just as nutty in that I am, living in devotion to the natural cycles of the sun and the moon and the seasons and all that sort of stuff. I'm not saying that there's anything smart about that, right? That's not a particularly intelligent thing. That's just like you just pay attention long enough and you notice, oh wow, isn't this cool? There are these repeating cycles. Oh wow, isn't that cool? This has the effect of changing the world around me constantly. I should really be in genuine relationship to that and notice the way it affects me and celebrate by just being present with what's happening. Right? There's nothing overly clever about that. It's not like there's a lot of complex theorizing that's required with saying like, wow, the moon is beautiful coming up on the horizon. I'm just going to sit here and enjoy that. There's nothing in my worldview that feels like it needs to be thought about too long anymore. But the more I see this, like, it's these theories and these systems that emerge from it. And have you read this or that, or, memorized these things and all of this? It's like, it leads us into this pit of kind of sorrow and disconnection and enshittification is the word that we keep using for like, all this tech stuff keeps doing is just like, you will own nothing and you will like it, which is fine in some level, right? Because like I'm all for communal ownership. A culture of library culture is kind of a big component in my mind of like how we might express the goddess, so like I'm all about the idea that like, yeah, I don't individually own anything, like we own everything, and so I care for everything, as opposed to my tech overlord owns everything, I just rent access to the movies I like sometimes. That's dehumanizing. That's a fucked up way to live your life. Whereas I think like, oh my God, we all own this. We're all responsible for taking care of it. The library of things, the library of skills, the library. Yeah, of course, there's libraries with books in them, but the tool library, all of that makes sense to me. But it's what happens when we create these digital or physical enclosures, that we create these like choke points of domination, choke points of access that I think, perhaps I'm specifically um, sensitive to it because of my Irish ancestry, and so my appreciation of, the first enclosure of the commons that was occurring in the British Isles, that ended up, kind of leading to the horrific genocide of the Irish by the English that we can see now in so many other places like Gaza and whatnot. And, genocide is tale as old as time, right? Genocide's not a new thing. We've been genociding each other for millennia. Um, but I think genocide is required only in this like anti-life, anti-goddess culture where it's all about building the biggest pyramid and one guy wanting to be at the top of that pyramid. And the way that shape of the pyramid is all about domination, is all about achieving the pinnacle. Nobody ever talks about how important the base of the pyramid is, Oh, baby boy. Oh, Lordy. I think my dog is calling to me. And so it would be profoundly anti-goddess culture to not go listen to my dog. And so super short, kind of like want to muse on the silliness of this tech overlord nonsense. And so good luck, be well, see you around.